Let's get reaction now from Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds. Congressman, it's always great to see you. Happy Friday. Let's first of all start with this. Since Joy Behar doesn't seem to think that the majority of the country knows the difference between a racist country and systemic racism, do you believe, A, that there is systemic racism in America, and B, do you believe that the United States is a racist country?
John, it's good to be with you. One, there's not systemic racism in the United States. Two, the United States is not a racist country. And three, why the hell would we even listen to Joy Behar? Who is she? I don't need her to tell me about what's racist and what's not. She already had her own issues wearing blackface. I know that The View's giving her a pass, but I'm not. You know what? I'm sick and tired of this conversation because it's ridiculous. You have people like her, like a lot of these white liberals, who love to demean a black conservative because we don't go along with their ideology. And that is the problem we're having. You know, the left likes to talk about being tolerant. Well, show it now. Be tolerant. Actually listen to the words of Senator Tim Scott, which were actually quite profound, instead of just running back to your corner and digging out a Mein Kampf or the Communist Manifesto to figure out what your next talking point is going to be. They constantly are doing this. It's disgusting. It's outrageous. I'm not listening to Joy Behar or any other media pundit, because media pundits have proven they don't even tell the truth anyway.
All right, I'm wondering why you're sugarcoating it and not telling us what you really think, your congressman, today. Talking about intolerance on the left, Tariq Nasheed, who is a film producer and social media commentator, who was one of the people who helped propel this idea of Uncle Tim into the trending section of Twitter, said of Tim Scott, quote, "When Uncle Tim Scott says America is not a racist country, he is fully aware he is speaking in bad faith. The purpose is to protect white supremacists." So Tim Scott did say in his response that America is not a racist country. But listen to what Vice President Kamala Harris said the very next day.
I don't think America is a racist country.
And for a little tiny bit of criticism from the same corner that tore a strip off Tim Scott, but no one accused her of protecting white supremacists. There is clearly a double standard at work here.
Of course they're not going to attack Kamala Harris because she is a liberal and she supports their ideology. This Twitter pundit or whatever the heck that person is, nobody even cares what his name is. I don't care. Never met that person. I would guarantee you this. He wouldn't say that to me directly in my face because he's a Twitter coward. And we have too many people like this in America today. They would love to go to social media and pontificate, but they don't want to get into the arena and actually debate these ideas. You know, the left always talks about they want to have a conversation on race. Well, let's have it. Let's actually do it mano a mano, man to man. Sit down at the table and go through idea after idea. They would rather try to take apart black conservatives because we're not following the script. We don't fit the narrative, and we have a different viewpoint for America. And John, listen, the reason I'm so upset about this is because we have to be calm. We have to actually explain these things to the American people, not demonize people because of the political views that they have.
So on the point that you made just a second ago, let me ask you this question. The fact that Senator Tim Scott is getting hammered so hard from the left and from progressives, is that an indication that they're afraid of him? Are they afraid of you?
Of course they are. They're afraid because the more that our voices are heard and we actually tell people the way we view America and frankly the way things actually are in America, it's much harder for you to push your radical agenda if people actually like the country. That's what this is all about at the end of the day. So yeah, Tim Scott is a threat to what they want to accomplish. He's a threat to passing things like H.R. 1. He's a threat to the massive spending that Joe Biden wants to do. He's a threat to thinking that police are out to get Black America. He's a threat to all these things. And so it's important that the senator continues to stand strong. I support him in that. There's many others like us who are going to continue to stand strong because we're not just going to fold to what liberal media think, because frankly, they don't even like our ideas anyway.
And let me get your thoughts, too, Congressman, on the other topic du jour, and that is this proposed rule at the Department of Education to give federal grants to schools to teach elements of critical race theory. Mitch McConnell sending a letter to Miguel Cardona, the education secretary, saying, quote, "This is a time to strengthen the teaching of civics and American history in our schools. Instead, your proposed priorities double down on divisive, radical, and historically dubious buzzwords and propaganda." What do you think of this whole idea of teaching elements of critical race theory in America's public schools?
First of all, I don't support it. I'm in the state of Florida. We were actually, the governor actually signed an executive order banning critical race theory being taught in our schools. But to a broader point, John, the federal government has no role and frankly should have no authority in telling states and localities what should be taught in school. We are a constitutional republic. It is not the job of the federal government, no matter who's in charge, frankly, to be telling localities and schools and states what should be taught in classrooms. I do not support this. It's not the proper role of the federal government.
And as we mentioned earlier, some states taking matters into their own hands to prevent the federal government from doing this. As always, Congressman Byron Donalds of the great state of Florida, good to see you today. Hope you have a great weekend.
Good to be with you.